Good day, Internet. I was in the middle of working on the passenger floor, and then I had some things arrive, and I dropped everything to do with the floor because this is way more fun. We got our wheels in the mail. Look at that. It's like glistening in the sunshine. These are Enki 92s, and the specs that I have chosen are right now. 15 by 8s, 4 by 100. And the car is not 4 by 100, but these are 4 by 100. So these are in the 4 by 110 holes right now. And these are the studs that came with the RX7, and I'm sure I could have gone and bought ones that weren't too tall, but all of these were too tall, and I'll put a picture up on the screen. They have like a little cap on them that's too tall by like at least 5 millimeters or so. So it was painful on 16 of these. I chopped the heads off of them. Some of these are still warm from being ground. That was probably a painful way of doing that. I probably paid more in grinder discs than I would have just buying new hardware, but reduce, reuse, recycle. So I'm gonna go mock up one of the wheels on the car right now for no reason. Tires aren't even mounted. Tires that I chose are some Kumo Solus 4 Seasons. Just because they were really inexpensive. They were having a discount on Kumo tires, and these are the only ones that were in stock in the right size that I wanted. So no, they are not racing tires, but they are all seasons. So I hope these just don't look weird whenever I put them on and they get stretched. It's not going to be a crazy stretch, but it's going to be not no stretch. You know what I'm saying? So I wanna get this on one corner of the car just to see it. So let's go. Remember the video where I installed these and they were all nice and perfect? Well, this is how rusty it is just from sitting outside, inside an enclosure. So this hasn't been getting wet. This is just from like the moisture from the ground. Not a big deal, just kind of ugly and sad to see. Brand new, never used. Drums get rusty, but same thing happened to the front brakes. Maybe I should have covered them with some oil or something, but really, not even worth talking about. So, balls. So what these do is, well, they keep the drum from falling off, and they also kind of locate the drum yaywards. So if it is, without these being torqued down, the drum kind of rubs on the shoes, I noticed. So I pulled up on the parking brake to center this, and then I torqued these down, and after that they were no longer rubbing. So, and I still like turn that with my hand if I put the parking brake down. Yeah, still spins good. So instead of actually like worrying about replacing these bolts, I think that this being bolted on permanently, semi-permanently, is going to be, it's going to do the same job. So we're going to yank those out of there. Absolutely no stud protruding. That's what we want to see. took my 19mm 3/8 drive socket, because it has thinnest walls of everything that I had, and I wrapped it in Scotch tape so that it wouldn't mar things up. Because you don't want that. Nice. Oh baby, that's a lot wider than the stock 5.5. This is an 8. And are we gonna have to roll this fender? You betcha. You betcha we're gonna have to roll this fender. This fender. It's on the stock springs right now, obviously, because that's all I have. But I jacked the pumpkin up as much as I can so that it's not a total monster truck. It's a total monster truck. But still, you get the vibe. This is very exciting for me. Oh yeah, that's very high. But still, it's coming together. Look at it. So, on to the next thing. That's sort of related. You'll notice that everything that I assembled here is no longer assembled. And there's a reason for that. Because I ordered this. This is a sleeve that you put over the stock front strut. And it gives you a thread so that you can adjust the ride height. Also comes with the spring and the top hat, so that is appreciated. So they let you pick your spring rate. So I did a little bit of quick research and came up with 200 pounds per inch front and 175 rear. I actually asked for 150, but they gave me 175 because that's probably the closest that they had, which is rather soft. But I'm kind of basing that on. So these guys have a set of lowering springs that don't really lower it that much. Yeah, 1 inch. That's not what I want. But so for a 1 inch drop, they did 145 in the front and 112 in the rear. That's really soft. So given that that's 20% more than stock, I'm going with 200 and 175. So it should be relatively stiff. But then you compare that to BC Racing. Here we go. Here's another listing. Do you actually have the information? Okay, here. They did 5K front and 3.5K rear, and this is like lower than I plan on going. So this is the other extreme. So if you look up spring rate conversion front. So they have 280 in the front, and I'm doing 200. And 195 in the rear. So I'm just a little bit softer than that. So that was a lot of rambling, but that's why I chose the spring rates that I did. And so this is going to go on the front coilovers. Front coilovers. Front. So here it is, off of the car. Took the spring off with the spring compressor. Didn't kill myself. Yay. Questioning if I should replace the cartridges that are in these shocks, because these are 40 years old. It definitely looks like somebody who may or may not have been a mechanic opened that. And I did, okay, maybe that marring was me, but this definitely looked like it was taken off by somebody else, so maybe these were replaced, maybe they're not 40 years old, but there ain't no shocking in the top bit. But then if you like plunge it down, then there's shock action, and then it like carries the fluid with it, and it continues being fluidy. So I don't know if that's normal or not, but I think we're gonna go on the safe end. And while I have all this stuff taken apart, we're gonna replace the cartridges. So the way this shock works is the inside of this is not directly filled with fluid. It has like a metal cartridge that goes inside, and you can slip that out. And then inside here, you can now lift up on the bobber, and I thought that the oil would be inside the big tube, And there is some oil inside the big tube, so I was like, how does the oil so there is a little bit of oil in the bottom there. You can't see it right now, but there's a little bit of oil. But it only goes up like that high, and then it stops. And I was wondering, like, does that flow into this? Because this is the thing that does the shockiness. I don't want to get it all dirty, but just trust me, this is the thing that does the shock action, and right now it doesn't do the shock action that great. But this is the thing that you can replace, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to put this back in here. So I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that the oil in here is purely for the purpose of heat transfer from the cartridge to the body of the shock, because I guess that getting compressed and uncompressed, it gets hot. So that little bit of oil at the bottom is there for heat transfer, but it is not used for actually dampening anything. So I was wondering if I could perhaps order thicker oil now that I'm upping the spring rate, but that's not really a thing. You just replace the cartridges. So I need to cut this perch off to put the new thing on for whenever it arrives. So that's just some cutting and welding work, which we're getting more and more used to. And the other thing that I ordered from Ground Control, these are kind of interesting. I've never seen anything quite like it. So the picture's small and the resolution is crap, so I'll just zoom in on it. They have a bunch of dead coils, quote unquote, at the top. So you can cut those off without altering how the spring seats in the top hat, and you can effectively adjust your ride height only in the down direction, which works for me. I'm just gonna set it once for my setup and hopefully never need to raise it again. If you ever need to raise it, I'm sure you could shim it with stuff. But yeah, so those are kind of neat. Also, they're relatively inexpensive, and they had a Black Friday deal going on, so I kind of couldn't help it because I was looking at this setup for a while. So this setup with the Black Friday deal ended up being like $633 US, which ended up being like 800 Canadian, and God knows that I'm going to get hit with duty like a month later after it arrives, so it'll probably be $1,000 all said and done, but that is a lot cheaper than the BC setup. So I like the idea of this. It's kind of a halfway measure to balling out and spending $2,000 on coilovers. You get to modify your stock ones and just put some interesting like one-way adjustable springs in the rear. Sounds neat to me. We're gonna try it.